Great Debaters Contest is powered by Blaze, by Safaricom, the Youth Network.
Welcome to the Eldoret edition of the Great Debaters Contest. I'm your host, Austin Nyumbok. Today our motion is the state should vaccinate children against polio regardless of their parents' consent. We have St. Clair's girls going against St. Joseph's boys. Who will be the victor? I really don't know. Proposer number one, you have 3 minutes.
I am Joki Ngugi, and today is a beautiful day, but only if, like myself, you are proposing that states should indeed vaccinate children against polio regardless of parental consent. So, what are states? These are organizations or communities that are under one government. Polio, simply a condition that could lead to breathing problems, death, disability. Are you hearing this? Yes, because it's very serious. Vaccination is an attempt to try and prevent this polio from attacking individuals by introducing the weakened version of the causal agent into their bodies. A child is a minor whose decision cannot be taken as legally binding due to tender age. The parent has the legal obligation and custody over this child. With that in mind, prevention is better than cure. So to my first point, it is in the best interest of the child. The state itself requires these children to serve them in the near future. So they will not do anything to harm the child. They are trying to prevent polio from attacking these children. Secondly, it is in the interest of securing the lives of other children. As a parent, especially in traditional African society, you have to be the mother of not only your child, the father of not only your child, but also the other children in the society. So when you don't vaccinate your child, you are putting the other children amongst your own at risk of being attacked by polio. It is a provision that adheres to the Bill of Rights of Beings. I trust that in every state, every individual has the right to access healthcare. We can take, for example, the Kenyan Constitution, the Bill of Rights, Chapter 4, Section 3, Act 53. We have the right to access healthcare. And immunization just happens to fall under vaccination also, which is under the umbrella of healthcare. So why do you want to defy the rights of this child as a parent? We have to reduce the number of disabled people in our society. We've just said that polio could lead to disability. So with that in mind, how many already disabled people do we have? People who have been discriminated, people who are hurting day in and out because of polio. We cannot increase this number by simply refusing to vaccinate our children. We have to reduce the number of dumped children. Take, for example, Nairobi. I walk along the street and find about 5 children, and I'm only walking a distance of 2 meters, my friend, 2 meters. And at that rate, can you just imagine how many more disabled children, if we do not vaccinate against polio, we'll have in our streets? Yes. So you should be proposing with me. Thank you.
Proposer number one, you have 3 minutes.
It may seem right to most of us, but take time, have a look at it. You get me cleaning your house in the morning without your consent. God gives, God takes. Me to Maximilian St. Joseph's boys. Polio vaccination is helpful. Bill Gates, the president of the Global International Foundation based in the USA, is actually carrying out serious campaigns on polio vaccination. But take a look at it. The case of the 32 children taken to the Kenyatta National Hospital and the Nairobi Hospital on 27th December 2016 because of the side effects of the polio vaccine. This is the people who are carrying out the campaign came to school. Since the parents are not part of us in school, they just asked and they were given. What was the effect? They were taken to hospital. There was no consent that the parents gave. Let us not pretend as if we don't know what is happening in our country. Why do we forget so fast? Don't we remember the parent of our younger sister, Tyndale, the Terry, on 23rd June 2017, this year, the child was amputated due to negligence at the hospital. Now, if the child is amputated, yet the parent was there to give the consent, what can happen if there's no consent? Think about it. The Constitution provides a child is under the protection of the government, of the parent, and of the guardian. The Constitution of Kenya, the Children's Act 2001, Part 8, Section 121, Subsection 2, says that even if an authorizing officer takes a child to hospital, the parents must be informed. That is our Constitution. So hence, the parents' consent is required. Who doesn't know the kind of country we live in? Look at what is happening around us. The corruption, the bribery, all these things are happening. The government of Kenya does not take into consideration the kind of drugs that are being offered. Fraudsters, imposters, new ways of abducting children. Parents' consent are needed for the polio vaccines to be given. Thank you.
Proposer number 2, you have 3 minutes for your cross-examination.
Soflin Joseph, St. Clair Girls, here to propose a motion that states should vaccinate children against polio regardless of parental consent. Funny enough, what the opposer just said is that the child got amputated even when the parent was there. The parent had the consent, but what was done? This parent even is not informed. Then you tell me to give you that pleasure, it's a right, but you're defying it. Again, religion is the opium of the poor. How many people in this Kenya are living below the poverty level? How then are we supposed to follow this religion? Yeah, you can say you're supposed to give you freedom of religion. Then I suppose we are going to have total confusion, and I mean total confusion, in the medical sector. How many denominations are there in Kenya, not considering the world at large? Because if we are to regard this parental consent, there'll be total confusion. And before we educate these parents on it, you know how long it will take? It will take forever. Again, I think children should not be subjected to the parents' arrogance. Because if we say about parental consent, they're already informed. It's everywhere in their posters. What are they doing about it? Because if we get to take this into consideration, in the colonization period, education used to spread. But what about these parents who never took that into consideration? Their children are retarded. Then you tell me to get that parental consent? Then you're going to have everyone, and I mean everyone, being disabled. And before we get that on the table, discuss about it, get the opinion counts, everyone is down. Our children are suffering, and I'm sure that's not what you want. Funny enough, it's ironical that you claim we should have the parental consent. So far, so good. Like in California, when the parents were given that obligation, what did they do? They hired attorney generals to go against the vaccination and the scientists who came up with it. If then you're not for the best interest of your child, how am I supposed to give you that freedom to give me the consent then? How then? If you can hire attorney generals so that they can get to sue the scientists who came up with the vaccine, what can't you do? I believe if we look at it in this perspective,
Stop being ironical. You were immunized. You were there. We do not need this parental consent at all. We do not need it. So think about it. Food for thought.
Opposer number 2, you have 3 minutes for your cross-examination.
Look at your neighbor. I want you to look at your neighbor. Look at her very well. Look at him very well. And imagine the next place I'll find myself if I take him to where I'm going without the parent's consent. What is the meaning of the word parent? What is the meaning of the word parent? What do I mean when I speak about the word parent? Mukolwe Brian from St. Joseph's Boys. I believe that the 32 children who were affected, and one of my fellow comrades here has talked about that. The 32 children and the amputated daughter on June 28th this year, it's not a matter of the parents' consent was not sought, the parents' consent was sought. This is what we're trying to pass across. This is what you're trying to bring on the table. If the parents' consent was sought and the child was still amputated, what if the parents' consent was not sought? This is what you're trying to bring on the table. The 32 children passed through hell because the parents' consent were not sought. Look at your neighbor again. Tell me the age of that neighbor of yours. Tell me if he has received the polio vaccine or not. You don't know. You don't know. The vaccine timetable states that we should give the polio vaccine, the IPV, the inactive polio vaccine, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and 16 weeks. I believe all this information is in the hands of a parent. For us not to alter the timetable and give drugs as ignorant people of this world, then we need the consent of the parents. Look at the guinea pig effect we are getting in Africa. Look at the guinea pig effect our countries and states are going through. We have drugs coming to be tried in these countries. Recently, there have been an argument about the testing of the new vaccine, polio, if it's good. Where are these vaccines going to be tested? If parents have information of the vaccine being tested on their children, I believe they won't allow a risk on their children. This is the 21st century, and I believe as we are living in the 21st century, everybody is getting exposed to the new ways of life. The government has done each and everything to stretch its hand to the villages and the marginalized areas where people did not know anything about polio. And according to research done, we find that the hostile religious practices and cultural practices have dropped by 14%. The ones that were against polio vaccine have dropped by 14%. So you can't stand in such a holy ground and give us enough information about the polio vaccine. I rest my case.
Thank you very much for your questions. The proposers have been asked if before vaccination, are they trying to say that everyone was retarded? And is vaccination the only available option? The opposers have been asked that they have described God as the healer. And therefore, are they trying to discourage individuals to accept scientific discoveries in regards to the field of vaccination? I give the first proposer an opportunity to answer the question.
Karen Wangari here to consequently propose the motion by answering the question. Yes, polio came in the 20th century. Therefore, how can we vaccinate a disease if it's not there in the first place? We only created the vaccine because the polio was there. Retarded growth was not there because polio was not there in the first place. Polio vaccine is 90 to 99% effective. I repeat, 90 to 99% effective. So far, so good. That's the only method given. To add on to that, the Messiah himself, he, against all odds, all religious odds, he saved people, he healed people on the Sabbath against the religious rules. Therefore, who are we then not to vaccinate our children regardless of parental consent? This is for your own good. There is no question. No parental consent should even be considered in the first place. Then, these advantages that are brought about by polio vaccines outweigh the risks. Yes, the children who died or whatever in the 32 children, but then, how many people are likely to get these side effects? So few. 1 out of 1 million. If we bring that down to Kenya, only 4 people are likely to get that disease, let's say in an year. So, parental consent should not even be considered. I mean, this is for their own good, for their children's good. It is not about parental responsibility anymore. It is about the state's responsibility. If you do not vaccinate your children, then you are creating the risk to the entire society at large. If you also do not vaccinate your children, they, as stated, will be paralyzed. Consider those children. These children could have been the next Barack Obama of tomorrow. These children could have been the next Nelson Mandela. These children could have been the next Julius Yego. Why are you not considering this? You are destroying the future. You are destroying the faith. You are destroying the uplift of our country. Parental consent is not even, it is out of the question. It is above that. Then, these IPVs are the ones to be administered, according to my opposer. But Kenya is below the poverty level. We are a developing country. The only thing we can afford is the OPV, that is oral polio vaccination. This polio vaccine is a requirement for public schools. Why do you think this is so? Because if we have unvaccinated children, they will create a risk to the children who are in that school. They are a risk to the society. This is not fair to those parents who have vaccinated their children. Therefore, parental consent is out of the question. Thank you.
Opposer number 3, you have 3 minutes to answer the questions.
If you are sitting here, lift up your hand and stretch your legs and say, "Thanks, Mom." If you are sitting here, raise your hands and raise your legs, say, "Thanks, Mom." You know, it isn't about that all parents are against the polio vaccine. That's the truth, my sister. Each and every parent hopes for the best of his child. Had it not been that my parent was interested in it, I would not have been infected with the disease polio. I will be suffering by it. Let I look at it. I do say, thanks, Mom, thanks to my parents, and thanks to everything. A report released by the WHO organization on 16th of June in 1992 in Geneva, Switzerland, the headquarters of the WHO organization, revealed that 39% of the Kenyan population were not aware of the disease polio. But right now, I can jointly say, and I can proudly say, that it's only 3% not enlightened on this disease. Only 3%. Great thanks to the great contribution. Campaigns such as Kick Polio Out of Kenya. And jointly, we are not against the fact that we are not against treating polio. What we are calling in is on the parents' consent. We are calling in on a united fight against polio. That's what the message is in. We are calling in on a united fight against polio. Coming together is a beginning, working together is a progress, and living together is a success. I look at these, and I do wonder, and I think to myself, and I would like to give you something more to do. Look at your neighbor, take a piece of paper, write it down. Just take a look and say, think of his age. Think of your date of birth, just write it age. Guess the date and give him. I cannot come to your home, look at you, regardless of your parents' consent, and gives you the disease. Polio is given us 6 weeks, 14 weeks, and 8 weeks. If I'm overage, if I'm underage, the vaccine is strenuous to me. The vaccine is going to have negative impacts on me. If I were Ngugi or Thiong'o, I would say, let's sit up with the upward revolution. If I were Chinua Achebe, I would say, let's not let things fall apart. But if I were the late Professor Margaret Ogola, I would say, let the liver and the source flow. But unfortunately, I am Keith Ian. Thank you.
Proposition, you have 1 minute for your final submission.
I think it's good that 3% were aware. And again, ignorance has no excuse. Listen, again, you can talk about these parents being asked about their parental consent. I think we are giving them uncharted freedom, and that we are putting the future generations at risk. And that's why I, as a woman, advocate that it should be mandatory without the parental consent. I guess you are gentlemen. That's why you don't feel the pain that I do. It is, and it's supposed to be mandatory without this parental consent. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 1 minute for your final submission.
First of all, allow me remind the proposers that the child whom they were claiming would one day be Barack Obama, the same Barack Obama wrote a book called Dreams from My Father. That is only an indication that the father gave him consent. The boy lived in the consent of the father. Maybe to bring all of us to reality, be keen and listen to what I'm going to read. Every year, 11 million Africans fall into poverty due to high out-of-pocket payments for healthcare. A WHO report said last year. We are not against the polio vaccine, but it is absurd. It is totally awkward to say that a parent should not give consent to the child being vaccinated. Just to answer you, my brother, God gave us the child and gave the child to the parent. Not child to child, but child to parent. Child under the parent to rule over the child. Thank
you. Mine will go to Winnie of St. Clair. Winnie, you're a good debater. You're convincing. So keep on working. You're passionate. But there's only one thing, work versus walk. Which was which? Next time, look at that. Mukolwe from St. Joseph's. You are quite convincing and a good debater. The rest of us, let's keep working. We get better with everything over time. Thank you.
I want to give it to St. Joseph Mito. That's your name, Mito? Absolutely. How you started off was very well, because you started by building a case of an example of a number of kids who had to go to hospital because of misdiagnosis or, act of the vaccination that went wrong. Now, that's how you start a debate that can engage people. And I also want to also appreciate Wangari. Yes, I think Wangari as well talked about how we are destroying the next generation, the next Barack Obama, the next what. We are destroying. That was very emotional, and sometimes you want to really think about this in a very good way. So I want to commend how you started off the debate. All the best to both teams.
A very close one with 1 point difference. St. Clair girls, the judges awarded you 68%. Please give them a round of applause. St. Joseph's boys, the judges saw it fit to award you 69%. You're our winners for the debate. Now we'd like to congratulate the two teams on stage, and we'd also like to thank our sponsors, Safaricom Blaze, and our studio audience for being very active. Our viewers back home, keep watching. I've been your host, Austin Nyumbok. Thanks for watching.
The Great Debaters Contest is powered by Blaze, by Safaricom, the Youth Network.